Hello, everybody, and welcome into another season preview show here at the Hockey Writers YouTube channel. I'm your host, Matthew Zator, and we are up to the New Jersey Devils as we keep previewing the teams going into the 2024-25 season. I've got Daniel Amoia and Josh Reinitz here. They cover the Devils. They're both credentialed writers for the Devils as well. How's it going? Josh, how's it going?
Good, man. Good to see you. Glad to be back for year two. Looking forward to it.
For sure. And Daniel, how's it going?
Doing pretty well, can't complain. Excited for hockey to finally get kicked off. It's been a long summer without hockey, so
It definitely has. We're getting closer and closer to training camp starting preseason. We start getting some hockey on TV again, so that's exciting. And the Devils were quite busy during the offseason, adding players, removing players, free agency trade. They were in pretty much everything to acquire players, and then everyone went quiet for about a month, and then all of a sudden you got the Oilers and Blues doing some stuff, but. So let's jump into the Devils though and start with their forward group, which didn't see a lot of changes. I mean, they added Paul Cotter, Stefan Nazen, and but their big group is still, they're back. They're ready to hopefully bounce back from a pretty bad season last year, where wasn't a very good one right after there seemed to be a breakout season where they made the playoffs and one of the top teams in the league, and then fell down to earth, fired their head coach, hired Travis Green, or hired Travis Green as an interim head coach, and then didn't bring him back, and then went to Sheldon Keefe from the Toronto Maple Leafs. So we'll talk about him later on. But let's start with the forward group. Josh, I'll start with you. What do you think about this group going into the season? Of course, still led by Jack Hughes up at the top, but what do you think about this forward group?
I think it's about as complete group as you're gonna see in the NHL. I think the only real hole for them right now is uh, down the middle on the fourth line. The nice thing is they have a ton of depth and a lot of interchangeable pieces, which, from what I know about Sheldon Keefe, he likes to tinker. So for him to have people like Stefan Nason, Tomas Tatar, Andre Palat that can slide up and down, anywhere in the top nine, it's going to give him an opportunity to really tinker and match against other teams.
For sure. I mean, there's a lot of guys. I mean, when you look at that fourth line, it's actually not, it's a pretty good fourth line when you're looking at the players on it. And that bottom six is guys you can pop into the top six, like you said, and do a lot of stuff. And Keefe has got a lot of options for sure. Daniel, what do you think about the forwards going into the season?
I'm gonna have to agree with Josh. Obviously, the forward group in a salary cap world is close to as complete as you're gonna get. With that being said, it's gonna be very interesting to see throughout camp, preseason, how Keefe is gonna implement those lines because, like you mentioned, Matthew, there's a lot of pieces that are currently slated to be in the bottom six, but could potentially play in the top six. They have that capability. So it's just a matter of what's going to help the team mesh the best. And Keefe is a younger mind. It's going to be interesting to see how he goes about that compared to guys like Lindy Ruff or Travis
Mhm.
Green. So it's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, Keefe's been, we all know, very successful in Toronto with with all those stars. So he's got a few stars to work with in this one too. Yeah, on this forward group for sure. All right, well, moving to the defense, this did see quite a few changes. They added a few guys in free agency. Brett Pesce from the Carolina Hurricanes, Brendan Dillon from the Winnipeg Jets. Two real solid veteran guys that are going to add a lot to this team. And then, of course, the young guns are still here. Luke Hughes, Simon Nemitz. Dougie Hamilton, you could say he's an addition because he wasn't here. He wasn't healthy almost all last season. And he was their top defenseman a couple seasons ago. And he will be again. Hopefully he's healthy all season. Daniel, what do you think about the defense and the additions? What is this a better group than last year? And what do you think about it all here?
Well, I think first off, it's a little hard to compare just because they were so injury riddled last season. As you said, the Dougie Hamilton injury, that was beyond detrimental for their decor. Obviously, it's no shade towards Luke Hughes, but he was young. he was learning on the go, and that's not an easy thing to do. So for him to have to fill the shoes or skates in this instance of Dougie Hamilton, it just was not an easy thing to do. You couldn't expect that out of someone so young. But getting Dougie Hamilton back, the addition of Brett Pesce, I look at the Pesce addition as basically a move that they got rid of John Marino and then added Pesce. And in my eyes, I think Pesce is a better defenseman than Marino overall. So I think they upgraded in that regard. Obviously, Nemitz and Luke Hughes are only going to get better as the years go on, being so young. And then they also added Brendan Dillon, who is the Devils GM Tom Fitzgerald made it very clear that the team basically was soft last season. That was his own words. They did not lay the body enough. They kind of got pushed around a little bit. And Brendan Dillon is someone who is certainly not afraid to lay the body. So, and he's also a very solid defensive defenseman overall because the defense as a whole, being so young, struggled with keeping pucks out of the back of the net. And obviously that goes hand in hand with goaltending. But yeah, I think Dillon is such a huge X factor because it's not like a huge role. He's probably not going to be playing 20 minutes a night like a Hamilton would, but I would argue he's almost equally as important because he's going to be that presence, that physical presence, and that defensive stalwart that the Devils needed. One X factor I am looking at, though, Jonas Siegenthaler has kind of struggled a little, especially last season. At his peak in the 21-22 season, he was one of the better defensive defensemen in the league, and he's kind of been tailing off, and he plays his best with Dougie Hamilton. So in a perfect world, he's able to mesh together with Hamilton again, and everything goes smoothly. But he's definitely an X factor, I think, for this defense.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at the three pairings. They're actually quite balanced when you're looking at the guys. And now the young guys won't have to play a ton more of minutes. That's if everyone stays healthy, that is. Yeah, it is a really good group, I think, too. Josh, what about you? What do you think about this defense? I mean, I know in your free agency preview article you put out, I know you mentioned Dillon as a possible target, and of course they added him. And Pesce was a foregone conclusion he was coming to New Jersey. Probably is the worst kept secret. What do you think about the additions and this defense?
I think you're the only one who read all 14,000 words. Dillon, to me, I think Pesce and Dillon, for a lot of us, we think the two of them are going to end up playing together. Fitz kind of threw some cold water on that at his press conference. But for me, being able to put Pesce and Dillon together allows them to have the shutdown pair that they didn't have last year. And you could put Hughes and Nemitz together and let them grow together, shelter them as a third pair, give them lighter defensive minutes and an opportunity to play against other teams' third pairs where they can be successful offensively. So I think Dillon really is the key to everything. They paid more for Dillon than people predicted, but I think they had to. Dillon, I think last year got in 7 fights. And most of them were defending teammates. And with the loss of Miles Wood and some of the injuries they had, they just didn't have that element last year. So somebody like Dillon, who's been around, and he's a great story. I mean, the guy came from undrafted free agent to a significant piece of playoff teams, and still hungry, looking for more. So I think he's as important an addition as they have, and I think Pesce's really underrated. When you play on a defense with Burns and Brady Shea and all those guys, I think he kind of get in Slavin. I think he kind of gets lost in the shuffle. And Hamilton, I didn't realize till I was writing about Hamilton last week how much even you could quantify how much they missed him. The year before, I mean, Hamilton's numbers were insane. He probably was underrated for where he was overall. I think he was tied for first in the league in long distance shots on goal, which is something that killed them last year because they couldn't get any shots through. And having Hamilton at the high slot, being able to hammer stuff on net. Now you add in Timo Meyer, who wasn't really there with Hamilton to clean stuff up, and Mercer. I mean, there's a lot of synergy there, and I think that those guys. It's well constructed if they can remain healthy.
For sure. I think that's the biggest question is that everyone stays healthy. That's going to throw a big wrench if no one, if the health becomes an issue again. So we'll hope and fingers crossed that everyone stays out of the injury room for sure. All right, moving to the goaltending, which also had a big change, and that was Jacob Markstrom coming in from the Calgary Flames. He again a pretty bad, worst kept secret because it seemed like Markstrom was going to come to the Devils at some point. There was a time it was going to happen to the deadline, didn't happen then. It happened in the offseason. So I, uh, I'll stay with you, Josh, to start with Markstrom. What do you think? I mean, of course, the tandem in general. You got Markstrom, you got Jake Allen as it right now. How big is this having a guy like Markstrom come in as pretty much the de facto starter? He's one of the more elite goaltenders in the league. What do you think about him coming to the team?
Doesn't get much bigger than 6'6" in goal. So I appreciate it. But Markstrom, the deal with Markstrom is his specialties is high danger situations. And the Devils did not get any help in high danger situations last year. And to be able to play an attacking style, having to worry about whether your goalie can cover up on the back end if your defense is going to be aggressive. 2 years ago, they were able to do that. Last year, it was a horrible disaster. I looked at Nico Hischier. It was interesting. His had a down year last year. He went from plus 33 to -5 in 1 year, and his other underlying numbers didn't really change. The biggest difference, save percentage. Save percentage with Hischier on the ice went from 907 to 871. So I mean, you bring that up to just 900 even, and it's a different world. So I think the Devils, for the first time probably since Brodeur left, are going into the season confident in who they have between the pipes, and I think that Fitz clearly decided he was going to build the team back out, from the crease outwards, and that's probably the best thing he could do.
Yeah, I think it was a huge thing last season was goaltending wasn't that good. And that's a big stat. That's ridiculous how much of a drop that was. Daniel, what do you think about the goaltending? I mean, I'm familiar with Markstrom. He was in Vancouver for quite a while. And he started showing the glimpses of what he was in Calgary. Of course, didn't do it in Vancouver. He was okay. I mean, he was pretty good in Vancouver at times, but he's become such a good goaltender in the league now. How much of an impact will he make on the team going into this season?
I mean, Josh kind of hit the nail on the head with everything he said. I saw a lot of discourse on social media saying that people should be wary of Markstrom because he didn't have a great second half with Calgary. But if you look at it, Calgary basically lost every good defenseman they had. So it's not really fair to hold Markstrom to that when he's shown how capable he is in the past. He has that long track record, and the underlying numbers were still good. Goals saved above expected and all that. So me personally, I'm not too worried. I think he's gonna fit into the Devils perfectly. And like Josh said, the goaltending they had last season, it's kind of hard to get worse than that. And it's really crazy to me how different last season could have been if the Devils even got league average goaltending. And I would think most likely at least league average is going to be a lock with a tandem of Markstrom and Allen. Jake Allen as well. Got to talk to him a little bit in exit interviews. He's someone who thinks the game really well. Obviously he's been doing it for a while, just like Markstrom, and he knows his role. He knows he's there as kind of the 1B. He knows his job. He prepares well, and I think he's going to be perfect for that role. And with that, goalies in the AHL like Nico Dawes, Isaac Poulter are able to going to be able to be seasoned properly. They're not going to have to be rushed quickly because we know that could ruin a goaltender. So I think overall, just for the future as well, the addition of Markstrom and the addition of Allen, I think it's going to go really well. And with a better defense in front of them, most likely too, as long as there's no injuries, I really think everything's meshing together.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at the goaltending, defense, and forwards. They're actually quite a balanced group now. I mean, you're looking at it as a whole. So, I mean, really, they should be a better team this year. and actually jump back up the Metro, which is a good segue because we're going to talk about the division now. I Daniel, what do you think? Where do they stand in this division? I mean, it's kind of tough. I mean, of course, there's going to be the top guy. You got Carolina, you got New York at the top there. New Jersey was, of course, at the top a couple seasons ago. Are they back there with the group that they have now?
Um, I don't know if number one in the Metro. I think the Rangers are still overlooked a little bit. Obviously, they had a tremendous season last season. And I think, well, especially me personally, because all my social media is basically Devils discourse, a lot of Devils fans like to discredit the Rangers, but they are so talented. They are very good. And I said the same thing last season. Don't count the Rangers out because they're just so talented. I know their core is getting a little older, guys like Panarin, Zibanejad, Kreider, but they're not like to the level of Crosby and Malkin. They still got some years in them, and I think the Rangers are still going to be very good. And on top of that, they have a full year of Hedel. They have Lafreniere, who is basically breaking out. So I don't think the Devils will be ahead of the Rangers. I have the Devils at either 2 or 3. I think the Devils and Hurricanes will be decide within a point or two, and that could go either way.
Josh, what do you think? Where do they stand in this division?
Yeah, and the Rangers didn't do much other than re-sign their own guys, which is unlike them. Um, I think the Rangers, you got to wonder if Shesterkin's good, they're going to be in it.
Yeah.
They have questions on their back end. Do they have enough on their back end to sustain it? Did they just end their window without getting to where they need to go the last couple of years? I mean, I guess you're going to find out. Question I have with the Rangers is, are they going to be able to stay healthy?
Mm.
As they get older, you've gotten full seasons basically out of Panarin and Kreider and Zibanejad, 4 or 5 years in a row with deep runs into the playoffs. At what point does that take its toll on guys in their mid 30s? Carolina is going to be interesting because I don't know how you can look at Carolina on paper and say they've gotten better.
Mm.
They've lost a lot. Gensel, they mortgaged the house to get Gensel, and then he walked, and they didn't get anything for him or really replace him. Their goaltending is also in flux. And then you look at the three old teams, right? You got the Islanders and the Capitals and Penguins, and you figure 2 out of 3 are going to be good. One's going to look really old for a while. Yeah, I like the Capitals. I like what the Capitals have done. I think Carberry's a great coach. I like some of their additions. I think they're going to surprise some people. It might be better than you think. And then who knows about the Flyers? I mean,
Yeah.
are we going to get the first half Flyers, the second half Flyers? I mean, Tortorella going to beat up his players in the middle? Like, who knows what's going to happen? So, I mean, we'll see what happens. But or beat up the media, I should say. He doesn't beat up his players. But we'll see. But I think the Devils are in the mix and should have a shot. I think they have an outside shot at the division if they can stay healthy. There's
Mm.
no reason why they couldn't. But like Daniel said, I think they're in that 2 to 4 mix. Could go as high as 1. If they suffer injuries, they could drop down.
Yeah, again, injuries are going to really dictate, and not just to the Devils, but every team in the division, because that
Yeah.
could happen with all of them. So we'll see. We'll see where it all falls. All right, before we move to our quick fire, we of course have to talk about Sheldon Keefe. We touched on him a little bit throughout here, but Josh, what do you expect from Keefe going into this season? I mean, we all know his regular seasons are always great. We won't know what happens once we get to the playoffs because that's where he's fallen short in Toronto. So, what do you think about him? And what he'll bring to the bench?
I think he's probably the best coach they could have hired for what they need right now. He's a guy who has a lot to prove still. Usually see guys in their second shot do better than in their first shot based on what they've learned. He's a curious guy, which I think is good. And he's going to build his game, his team based on pressure. And I think he has the roster to do that now. They have guys who can forecheck. They'll be able to have guys on every line who can forecheck and pressure. And I don't know if you've seen it, but I would really tell people to go watch All or Nothing that Amazon did with the Leafs during COVID. You get a real sense of Sheldon Keefe in that, and I think you're making a big mistake if you think he is a soft players coach, because just watch that for a couple episodes and he is not a soft. He's a good guy. He'll talk to his players. He's not going to throw his players under the bus. In that sense, he's a players coach, but he doesn't go easy on his guys, whether it's Austin Matthews or the 14th guy, 14th forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's, again, being in Toronto, you're at the middle of everything media wise, and you get criticized for whatever you do. And maybe that's gonna be good for him having that experience. And now he's going to maybe a less media pressure market, and now maybe he'll be a better coach because he won't have to deal with that every day. So we'll see. Daniel, what do you think about Keefe being head coach now?
Yeah, well, going back to the media comment, he said something along those lines at his intro presser. It was something like, "I'm excited to coach in the real NHL." I don't remember if that was the exact quote. Something along those lines, because it's definitely a huge difference with the media in New Jersey compared
Yeah.
to Toronto. So in that sense, I mean, he's built to prepare for Toronto media. So getting New Jersey, I think, will take a little load off his back. And then, I mean, he's the younger guy, like Josh said. He's not afraid to lay down the law, but also not too tough. Like,
Hmm.
he has a very good working relationship with his players. And I think with guys like Jack Hughes, Nico Hischier, I think that's going to go really well. And we know it did in the regular season in Toronto. The playoffs, for whatever reason, were just that big obstacle for them. But you got to get to the playoffs first. And I think some people are almost looking too far ahead at, can the Devils succeed in the playoffs? Well, they didn't get to the playoffs last season.
Yeah.
So you got to get there. And the fact that we know Sheldon Keefe is very good at getting his teams to the playoffs and basically dominating during the regular season. And once he's there, like Josh said, coaches are usually better in their second go around. I would think that his experience will be able to take that team. And I mean, Toronto and Devils, their core is both very talented. And it's just a matter of, like, just think back to Keefe's tenure. Like, if a couple game sevens went differently, it could be a
Mm,
completely different narrative. So
yeah.
I know they're the big time games, and it's easy to judge a coach based on that. But I personally am not gonna let a couple games where things didn't go Toronto's way, and that's not all Keefe's fault either.
Mm.
Obviously, the players on the ice got to perform. I don't think that's gonna, like, fully hinder Keefe's ability to attain success from this Devils team.
Yeah, I agree. I think the thing is with Keefe, it's like it wasn't just him that Maple Leafs have they've been bad before him too. It's not like he's the reason why they can't go further in the playoffs. It's been an issue for a long time. So I think he was a good hire for the Devils too. All right, quick fire round, and these are all just quick questions, sentence or two answers for these ones. So I'll start with you, Daniel, on the first one. What's the biggest storyline or question mark going into this season for the Devils?
I gotta go goaltending. Even though they enforced it, I mean, it's still always a question mark. You never truly know. I always compare them to relief pitchers in baseball, so you never know what you're gonna get. So I'm gonna.
All right, Josh, what about you?
I think the biggest storyline is can Jack Hughes come back and reassert himself as one of the top 5 to 10 players in the league? Because when he's on, they're just a different team.
100%. He's their backbone on the forward group. I mean, Nico Hischier is too, but yeah, definitely Jack Hughes. He's a big impact player. There's a reason he's on the cover of NHL 25. All right. One or two breakout stars. I'll stay with you, Josh, on this one.
I'm gonna go well. Star wise, there's not a lot of new and unknown guys. To me, 2 guys I really want to watch are Curtis Lazar, who's entering a contract year. He's going to get a chance to play center, and is in line to make himself decent money if they'll let him play 82 games down the middle. I think he has a unique set of skills, and really is a big piece of the locker room. The other guy is Paul Cotter. Fitz really thinks that they're going to get a lot out of Paul Cotter. They see him as a guy who can move up the lineup and not be stuck on the fourth line. And with his size and his speed, that could be a huge benefit for them.
Yeah, two good picks. Daniel, what about you? Who's a breakout star this season?
Well, Josh took Cotter from me, so I'm gonna go Timo Meyer. I mean, he was injury plagued for most of the season, and we all saw what he was capable of. He was one of the best goal scorers in the league down the stretch. So that makes a big difference. I mean, and if you have that with a healthy Jack Hughes, Jesper Brad, Nico Hischier going, I mean that really propels the offense. I'm also gonna go Dawson Mercer. Obviously there's been a lot of talk about his looming contract that
Mhm.
still hasn't officially been decided, but likely will soon. Bottom line is Mercer had a career worst year last year and still scored 20 goals. So he's also healthy. He's never missed a game in his career, played 3 full seasons, and obviously with the Devils' injury history, that's a big thing as well. So if he's able to put it together and get back to how he was in 22-23, where he scored 50 something points, 27 goals, that makes a huge difference for the Devils. And again, with Meyer, with the healthy Hughes, etc., it makes a big difference. And that'll take some of the load off their goaltending and defense as well if the offense is scoring a billion goals a night.
That's yeah, it can cover up a lot of things if you can just score your way out of trouble sometimes too. All right, Josh, what about a guy that needs to bounce back from last season? Now, on a team that wasn't very good, of course, there's probably be a lot of candidates here.
I think the guy with the most pressure on him to bounce back is Palat. I think they need Tampa Bay Andre Palat, the guy they gave $6 million to. It's his third season. This is the prime time that they signed him for. The team's ready to win. They need his steady hand. They need him to stay healthy. He's gotten hurt both years. If he can give them, 15 to 20 goals, 40, 45, 50 points, and play on all three teams, and really give them the leadership that he showed in the Worlds this year. I think it'll be a big help for them.
Yeah, Palat's been an impact player most of his career, and that's what they paid him for. So hopefully he can start becoming that again. Daniel, what about you? A bounce back player?
For me, well, I mentioned Jonas Siegenthaler before, so I'm gonna go with Eric Halla. He wasn't bad per se last season. He had 16 goals and 35 points, but I still feel like there was a little more in the tank, and a lot of that was first half heavy. He started off really well and then kind of tailed off. Obviously, with the loss of Michael McLeod, the Devils still need that face-off guy, and that's what Eric Halla is. Him and Hischier are going to be taking likely a majority of the draws, and if Halla, he was solid in the circle. If he could just take that up maybe 1 or 2 more% and play in the second half, well, play in the way he did in the first half last season, if he could play that the entirety of the 24-25 season, that again is going to lengthen out the offense. And he's always been someone who I've considered to be solid defensively on a team that gave up a lot of goals. He was a -1, which that was one of the better metrics on the team for plus minus. So he showed what he can do in the playoffs in 22-23 and just really that whole season. And I think he just took a small step back last season. So if he's able to find that extra gear again, I know he's getting a little older, but his performance in the Beauty League, he scored like 3 points a game. So not saying I expect him to score 3 points a game, but if he could keep that offensive output up and as the reliable defensive presence he is, I think he's going to be an important piece for the Devils and shouldn't be overlooked.
I've always seen him as a very underrated player too. He can. I mean, he's shown he can score. He's of course really good in the face-off dot suit too. So yeah, I think he's going to be a really good guy in that bottom six for sure. All right, let's move to some X factors. I know Daniel, you mentioned one guy being the X factor, Siegenthaler, but do you have someone else, or it could be something as well for an X factor this season?
Well, I know we talked about health and Jack Hughes, but I'll kind of combine the two. The health of Jack Hughes. He's really only had 1 season, which was when they made the playoffs figures, where he stayed in the lineup. And other than that, he's basically dealt with major injuries every single year. And the Devils need Jack Hughes to stay in the lineup because even a struggling Jack Hughes is better than, I'd argue, probably 95% of
Yeah.
the players in the league. He still racks up those points. He's great on the power play. So I think the him staying in the lineup is so healthy because that just lengthens out the lineup more than anyone else being healthy. And also his defensive presence. I'm not expecting him to win the Selke Trophy, but there were times where he was just completely lost or
Mm.
fighting and not able to get back, leading to breakaways, 2-on-1s. And he showed some frustration with that. There were times he'd bang his stick on the glass and stuff like that. So I think if he's able to, he's shown that he's great at getting takeaways. He's shown that at times he could be great defensively. So if he could just at least bring it up to league average defensively with the offense he has, he is going to be one of the better players in the NHL, maybe even top five.
Yeah, I mean that season where he scored what close to 100 points.
I think it was 97.
97.
99.
If he can be that guy again, I think that would be massive for the Devils. And he started off the season before he got hurt there. He was on pace for we were starting to think, oh my gosh, he's gonna have a really great season. But then of course he got injured. Josh, what about you at X Factor for this season?
For me, it's the power play. The biggest change was, I guess, when Hamilton went out, they were leading the league in power play, and then they ended up, I forget what the percentages, but they dropped precipitously. And um, with the talent they have, there's no reason why they shouldn't be a top five power play team in the league. And I
Yeah.
think that's really what you're looking for with Keefe. And he's got so many options on how to build the power play that's going to be, to me, the real key for the season.
Yeah, power play is for, I mean, they have so much talent. They should have a good power play, at least looking on paper. But that's not
Yeah, I mean
always the case.
the one thing that they lack it really is right hand shot players. I
Yeah.
mean, losing to Foley hurt them. But Nason has some power play experience, so maybe he fills in a little bit. But
Mhm.
that's, I mean, I'd also like to see him possibly play with using Dougie as kind of like an Ovi like sniper. Put him
Right.
at the circle, let Hughes, let Luke run the blue line, let Dougie just wind up and blast, and then
Yeah.
fill in with Meyer, Jack, and Heischer and see what you can do. But there's a
Yeah.
lot of options.
Which is always the good thing on the power play.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about some prospects. I mean, looking at the lineup, there's probably not a lot of room for these guys, but who knows? That's why they're surprising. Josh, who do you see as a surprise prospect or rookie that could crack the lineup we're not expecting at this point?
Yeah, to me, there's not much. Most of their prospects are now NHL players, at least the
Yeah.
top prospects. The rest of them, a lot of them, they traded. The two young guys really are Nolan Foote and Brian Hallinan. I think are the two guys with the best chance to play. Um, Similar kind of guys, both big, sturdy. Hallinan's a much better skater than Foote. Foote's got a really heavy shot. And they like how Foote has progressed, and he'll have a chance probably to play on the fourth line, third line. Um, but I think those are the two guys most likely to crack the lineup, at least on the forward side.
All right, Daniel, what about you? Anyone you see that could potentially surprise here?
Um, I like Josh said, it's going to be very difficult considering most of their prospects have graduated. But I feel like we can't go without mentioning Seamus Casey. I mean, he
Yeah.
was a, a dominant force at University of Michigan, one of the better defensemen in the entirety of college hockey, and he has the right mindset. He's another player I got to talk to at exits, and he said something along the lines of, "If you think it's gonna be easy, then get out of here," so something like that, because he knows that it's not in an easy linear path always to the NHL, and he's perfectly welcoming of the opportunity to possibly develop with the Utica Comets of the AHL. And he has the right mindset. He's just watching him at development camp. He was almost light years ahead of the competition. His edge work, he's very deceptive. He could dish the puck. He could also shoot an underrated shot as well. And we saw that World Juniors too. He was really almost kind of a complete offensive defenseman.
Mhm.
And adding that to a lineup of guys like Hamilton, like Luke Hughes, that could, in a perfect world, end up extremely dangerous for the opposition. So it's going to be difficult for him, but I wouldn't say impossible. Obviously, injuries are always a thing, and you never know. Someone could possibly not like he could just do really well in preseason, and they don't really have much of a choice, or
Mm.
an injury down the road. We were in the same situation. It felt like we were talking about this with Simone Nemitz last
Yeah.
preseason, and everyone was like, "There's no way he's gonna make the lineup," and he didn't. But then Dougie Hamilton goes down, and Nemitz becomes an integral part. So I think it's kind of going to be the same situation with Casey. I see him playing in the AHL. Actually, their assistant GM Dan McKinnon said that he, in an interview with the Rome Sentinel, said that he is, as of now, is slated to start in the AHL. But that can obviously always change with injuries and stuff like that. And Casey, if they don't trade him, if they think he can overcome the logjam there on the right side and become a huge part of their defense, he is going to be a focal point of their defense for a long time, I think.
I've always liked Casey too. I think just looking at the defense right now, I mean the Devils are really stacked for young defense that are going to be really impactful players, and I think Casey definitely has that ability to do that. I really like that addition, that when they drafted him. So we'll see. He definitely has the right mindset, like you said, going into this season. So even if he does get sent down, and he'll work his way up and impress to maybe be the first guy they call up when an injury does happen, which will happen. I don't think any team goes through a whole season completely healthy. So, or very rarely. All right, looking at other prospects outside of guys that could make the team, Josh, who should everyone be watching outside of the NHL here?
Um, well, Casey's obviously one. They got two guys over in Russia, Gritsyuk, who Danny was definitely going to say, and
Yep.
um, there's a couple guys in the AHL. Tobias Villain, I think, is an interesting prospect. I also am interested to see how the goalies do.
Yeah.
Nico Dawes, if they're going to give him a chance to play regular minutes in the AHL and just let him run. See if he can take over for Jake Allen next year and be their backup, and then maybe eventually take over for Markstrom when his contract expires.
Yeah, those are all good ones. I think Nico Dawes, he's shown some flashes in the NHL too when he's been up here. So I was thinking Akira Schmid would be still here because he was so good, but then of course they traded him. But yeah, Dawes is still here and he could potentially do something. Daniel, what about you? Who should everyone be watching? I know Josh took one of your guys, but
Yeah, I was 100% gonna say Arseny Gritsyuk, but anyway, I
Good guy.
digress. Um, Jakub Malik, who's a goaltender, he played in the Finnish Liga last season. He played really, really well, and he was noticeable at development camp as well. And he's someone who, obviously not right now, but in a couple years could fight to be a huge part of the goalie tandem in New Jersey. And I think once he's not talked about too much. I was actually reading a thread the other day, and he was named in someone's thread on Twitter as one of the most underrated prospects in the NHL. Kind of goes quietly, but obviously Finnish Liga isn't an easy league. And as a young kid, he was doing very well and holding his own. I think his save percentage was like 906 or something like that. So nothing to scoff at, obviously. And once he comes over in North America, if he does, assuming he does, then people are going to finally put eyes on Jakub Malik because goaltending is obviously a huge part for any team. And if he's able to establish himself as that steady goalie, young goalie who could possibly solve the future in net, that's a big thing. The Devils have obviously drafted a lot of goaltenders, especially this year. What was it, three? I think they drafted this year,
so yeah.
and you can never have enough goalies, right? You figure if you draft 10 of them, even if one or two hit, that's huge. That solves your future possibly.
Yeah.
So it's I personally like how GM Tom Fitzgerald is throwing the darts on the goaltender dartboard and hoping that some of them stick. And with Malik, from what I've seen him personally, I think it might stick. And by the way, he has a really cool mask too with the Jamaican flag on the back. It's pretty sick. So
He's a big guy too. He fits their profile of wanting big goaltenders.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is about goalies, they're so difficult to see how they develop because some goalies take forever. Other guys, all of a sudden, they're in and a couple of years and they're good. So, I mean, it's just such an interesting watching goalies develop because it's not, you don't know. I mean, you don't really know when they're going to come into the NHL or if they do at all. So, they're an interesting group, that's for sure. All right, now a couple quick ones to end here. Now some could be obvious, but Josh, who's going to lead the team in scoring this season at the forward group and defense?
Hughes and Hughes. Hughes and
Both
Hamilton, I
Hughes.
think.
There you go. You don't think Dougie Hamilton's gonna?
I know. I would take Dougie. I think if Dougie stays healthy, he's in line for 70 to 85 points. I think.
Yeah, so he'll lead the defense then.
I believe so.
All right, and Daniel, is that the same with you, or are you having someone else take over Jack's?
Yeah, no, I think if Jack Hughes is healthy, he's far. I would, if he's healthy, if Jack Hughes plays 82 games, I can almost assure you he's scoring 100 points. I think, I mean, just the pace he was on, if he was healthy last season, he would have got way over that.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of health for him. And I mean, unless Luke Hughes just has a huge development, which maybe he'll be putting up 80, 85 points in the future, but I don't think that's this year. As long as Dougie Hamilton doesn't regress significantly after his injury, I think he'll be right there, like Josh said, 70 to 85 points.
I think Daniel's anticipating a ton of hat tricks. He's got all the hats loaded up there, ready to go.
One thing about Luke is it'd be crazy because you got those three brothers. I mean, if Luke can get to that 80, 90 point mark too, because Quinn's already done it. What a talented trio that is. I mean, like I say, there's a reason they're all on the NHL 25 cover this year. So that's pretty cool. I've never seen a cover
awesome.
have three guys on it. So that's a pretty awesome thing. I'm gonna have to actually buy that physically, not just download it this time. All right, let's finish the show with a bold prediction, hot take, and I'll start with you, Daniel. What do you got?
Oh, that's a tough one to be put on the spot for, but I'm gonna go. Paul Cotter will score 45 points. That's gonna be mine.
All right, Josh, what about you?
Timo Meier breaks the Devils' goal scoring record.
Oh, that's a bold one. Yeah, what is the goal scoring record?
Is it 48? Is it 48, Dan?
I think Gianta got 48.
I think so too.
Jack was just shy of it a couple of years ago when he got the 99 points.
Yeah, that does sound familiar, Gianta having a 48 goal season. So yeah, so there you go. We'll see what happens. But thanks, Josh. Thanks, Daniel, for coming on the show and talking Devils. It should be a better season this year, and probably playoffs. Fingers crossed, and everyone stays healthy. But they're all very, like we talked about, all position groups are strong. If everyone's in the lineup, they should be a really good team. So make sure to check out everything at thehockeywriters.com for both these guys and all the rest of the Devils writing team. We got a great group over there covering the Devils. And of course, both you guys are actually at the arena and, right there and talking to the players too. So make sure you're following them all throughout the season. Check out our Substack as well. It gives you all the best articles from the Devils team. And make sure checking out to the YouTube channel as well for all of the rest of our previews as we continue the countdown to the season. But until our next one, we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Matt.